Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. Welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside and Out. Today it's my privilege to have in studio Police Chief Sean Duggan, thank you, Chief, and Fire Chief Tom Dwiggins. Thank you, Chief. I don't get two chiefs on the set very often, so Fire Chief Tom Dwiggins and Police Chief Sean Duggan. Okay, today we're going to talk about a subject that I think is near and dear to everybody's hearts. It's been in the news a lot for the last few years, and that's school safety. So we'll be discussing that with both chiefs today, talking about that and what we're doing in Chandler to look at that issue. But maybe before we get into that, and I'll start with you, Tom, we can talk a little bit about your backgrounds and how you ended up as chief and how you ended up as chief. So Tom, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, first of all, Mayor, thanks for the invite today. Obviously, this is a very important topic. I can tell you that both the police chief and myself are very passionate about it. I've been with the city now for just over 20 years. I went to the fire academy in 1997, started as an entry-level firefighter, and through the last 20 years, I've held every position within the organization. I've worked in just about every division, and probably most relevant to this conversation today, I spent time in our school programs, both on the fire code, making sure the schools were safe, and as well as the education programs. And so I do have a pretty extensive background working with the schools. 2016, our fire chief retired. I applied for the position. I was promoted to chief, and I've been there ever since.
Awesome. Doing a good job. Doing a great job. Thank you.
you.
Chief Duggan. I was going to call you guys Chief D, but you're both Chief Ds.
Well, again, Mayor, appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about actually a very important subject. But my background, I was appointed chief here in Chandler about 5 years ago. And it's just been an incredible privilege to work with some very talented and dedicated people within the PD and throughout our city, and to live and work in a city that genuinely supports their police. So very, very fortunate. But I started my career in 1986 after I graduated ASU. And I started with Scottsdale PD. Yeah. So I spent about 27 and a half years there. And I started as an officer working patrol, had an opportunity to work some different assignments in gangs and special investigations and SWAT, and opportunities to do different things and ascend the ranks over the years. I was a precinct commander for 2 different areas in Scottsdale. And then in 2006, I was promoted to assistant chief. And for the first few years, I was responsible for all the patrol operations, essentially everyone in uniform. And then a few years later, all of our investigations and our crime lab. And all that just built an incredible foundation to be able to come here to Chandler.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. And you guys are both doing a really, really good job. Your departments are highly respected. You're both highly respected. Our citizens feel really, really good about the hands they're in with both you at the helm of our public safety department. So thank both of you.
Thank you.
So after the Parkland, Florida shooting this past February, we ramped up our efforts as a community to address school safety and these kind of incidents. So maybe Chief Duggan, I'll start with you. You can talk about the steps taken immediately following that very sad school shooting and what we started to do.
Sure. So when news of the shooting broke, one of the first things that I did was convened my command staff and gave them instructions to assess and just give an overview of our school safety policies and procedures. And outside the PD, the very first person I reached out to was Chief Dwiggins. And we met and we decided to convene a meeting with our school district executives. So about 2 weeks after that, we met with Dr. Castile and her staff, and we identified the need and the desire to really do a comprehensive overview of what are we doing and are there things that we can be doing better, and are there things that we can be doing differently. So we identified a subgroup essentially, and they went back out and they came back about, that was March 2nd. We met again about May 16th. Which was about 3 days before the Santa Fe shooting in Texas. So we'd come back and we identified a number of initiatives that we can move forward. And some of those were relatively easy to do, and some of those would take collaboration with the school districts. And so throughout the course of the summer, because it was right on the heels of the school break, we worked on a number of things. And as far as the PD, we put all of our school resource officers through enhanced active shooter training. We equipped them with increased ballistic protection. We provided them training and issued them rifles. We did threat vulnerability assessments at our school campuses. So there's a lot of things that we did that were relatively simple. And another one was, in the past, we always encouraged our officers, time permitting, to stop by their schools. Remember, our middle schools and high schools have SROs, but our grade schools don't. So we created a automated process where officers now are dispatched to elementary schools throughout the day. So you never know when a Chandler police officer will roll up to that campus. And we worked on something simple as identifying areas or work sites, work locations in each campus where officers can go and maybe do their paperwork. So they can pull up, maybe get out of their car for a break, take their laptop and go into one of the many dozens of campuses we have in Chandler. And we've already put up signs, so parents, people that visit the schools will see where that work site location is. And then we worked on a number of more comprehensive prevention programs that we can discuss in a little bit. So the wheels are moving right away, and it's something that we continually assess as the year goes on.
Yeah. One of the things you all talked about and adopted, I think, was something called the School Emergency Response Team, similar to the fire department's CERT, C-E-R-T program that they have in place. So I'm going to ask Chief Dwiggins to talk about the original CERT and then the School Emergency Response Team that you guys are talking about.
Sure. So the original CERT program was developed almost 15 years ago. And really, I think we've had close to 2,000 Chandler citizens go through that program. The vision of that program was, in a large-scale emergency, there's always a gap from when there's an incident and somebody calls 911 until the police department or the fire department arrives. And as the incident grows, and not so much in Arizona, but we see the hurricanes or earthquakes, you could go from what is a routine 5-minute response time for your fire department to a 5-hour, to a 5-day, depending on how big it is. So there's always that gap. And so the vision of this program was to train citizens within neighborhoods to fill that gap. And so they had just a little bit more training than the average citizen on medical operations, search and rescue, even just how you communicate in some type of an emergency. And really, our goal for them was to help stabilize the incident until we could get on scene. So if you take that big gap and now you scale that down to a small gap, and you think about a school shooting or a school fire, from the time that they call 911 until police department or fire department arrives on scene, there's a window in there where the teachers, the admin staff, the custodial staff can do something. They can evacuate the kids, they can stop bleeding, they could do all the things that really help build our organization as we get on scene. And so what we've done is we've taken that CERT program, the original program, scaled it down, and it's a joint venture between the police department and the fire department on the skills that we're going to teach them, so that they're doing something. Whether it's a 3-5-minute response time, there are actions being taken. So when we pull up on scene, things have already been done and things are already in place. And so right now it's being developed, and it is a collaboration between the police department, the fire department, and the school district. And we're excited. We think this is something that will be successful, and it will probably be modeled, I would say, across the state and maybe across the country.
It's driven by the public safety folks, but it's a citizen group.
Correct.
Where we're expanding our presence, or our ability to have a presence,
Absolutely.
by recruiting citizens to get involved with it.
Exactly.
How do you see, could you give us an example of where that would maybe kick in or something?
Sure. So if we look at it from the school situation, so if we had an incident at a school and that somebody was hurt or multiple kids were hurt, it's going to be a 5-minute window before we can get there.
Right.
But the ability of a teacher to stop bleeding or do CPR. In fact, Mayor, I think a few months ago, we recognized a teacher that did CPR in the classroom and saved a student's life. So it's their ability, instead of just calling 911 and waiting, where they're actually taking action and they're stopping, they're controlling the bleed, or they're evacuating people, or they're locking down appropriately the students in the classroom. And this extra training, we're hoping that every year we do this and more teachers get that training. And before we know it, we have a whole school full of trained teachers that can help us out.
Yeah, good. So parents should know that we have a strong presence of public safety personnel in our schools for some time. Talk about how each of your departments interacts currently with our schools, and we'll start with you, Chief Dwiggins, and then we'll go to Chief Duggan, but how you interact with the school folks.
So as I said, I've been here for just over 20 years, and from the day I started, we've been in the schools. It's something that obviously you and the council have been very committed to. Currently, right now, we have a program called Partnership for Life, which is it's almost like a certification program where each school, they have to meet 5 benchmarks. And if they meet them, they become a Partnership for Life school. There's a big emblem as you walk in so you can see which schools fall under that. But we are in the schools. We are teaching the staff how to inspect their classrooms, how to inspect their buildings, looking for dangers in the schools, teaching them how to report it. We inspect the schools with our inspectors. We require 10% of the entire staff to be certified in CPR. We do education for all first and second graders. So every first and second grader in the city of Chandler has an education program, not just about fire safety, but safety in general.
Right.
And then the last thing it's one of the most important pieces is the fire drills. We used to allow the schools to do the fire drills on their own, and I think they did a good job, but now we require that one of the trucks, that neighborhood fire station and that neighborhood school will come together and do it together. And so if you meet all 5 of those benchmarks, then you become a Partnership for Life school. In the school, we have a competition. Whoever has the least amount of inspections and has the most people certified, we do a water day for them. Where we bring the truck and we hose down all the kids with water in the summer and things like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Chief Duggan, how about the way the police department interacts with schools?
Well, perhaps the most obvious or visible sign is our school resource officer program. We have officers assigned year-round to our middle schools and our high schools, and that covers our Chandler school districts, Kyrene, and Mesa. And their primary role is to provide that law enforcement presence and a visible presence, and to take law enforcement action when necessary. But they do a number of other things as well. They act as mentors, as counselors, and teachers for students and staff. They provide law enforcement education, and they are there part of the school community. They're a great they role model the brand of policing, and they help build relationships and strengthen relationships between the kids and police. But they also, you'll see them involved in extracurricular activities. So they are part of clubs after schools, and they often coach youth sports as well. So it's an integral part of our philosophy to help bridge that gap and to help strengthen the bond between the youth in our community and the police department. And in the summer months, they help us with we have a youth academy. We do that twice in the summer, and we run academies during both school intersessions as well. So they're playing an integral part in that. They help with our wilderness academy, and they assist with our cadets as well. So they're busy year round, and it's one of the most important programs actually we have in the police department.
Great. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're just going to reintroduce the show. I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. You're watching Chandler Inside and Out. Today we're talking about school safety. We have both of our police and our fire chief in the studio to talk about it. Again, chiefs, thanks for being here. Just real briefly, I know you talked about it earlier in the show, the school resource officer. Let's just talk about like what schools they're in. I think it's high school and junior high have school resource officers, 1 per school, or?
Right, so we have 9 SROs, and they cover a total of 10 schools.
Okay.
So all of our middle schools and high schools within the geographic boundaries of of the city, and that covers all 3 school districts.
Okay. I'm going to go to Chief Dwiggins now. I want to talk about the training with our schools that is currently underway, and also how the departments map out campuses in case of an emergency response necessity.
Okay, so we do train with the schools right now, and probably the best training that we do is those fire drills where
Okay.
we start working on evacuations. One thing that we found early on when we started attending evacuations and fire drills is that the school sometimes would empty out and all the kids would be right in front of the fire hydrant or the systems for firefighting. And so we came together and we started talking about where they should evacuate, how they should evacuate. But at the same time, we learn from the schools on how they communicate and the challenges that they have. And I've gotten so much feedback from the district and from our captains that they have really come together as a collaboration and pre-planned each one of these schools on how operations will work.
Right.
And so if you think about it, the most critical time is when we pull up on scene and there's a fire or there's something going on. If we can already have that relationship established where we know exactly where they're going to be and they know exactly what we're going to do, it makes it really simple. It's still going to be a tough operation, and it is not, one thing I've learned is it is not easy to evacuate a school with little kids because you're accountable for every single child, and some kids call out sick, some kids are in the nurse's office, and so we've really come together to look at the logistics and how we can help each other achieve our goals. As far as the mapping goes, we do have computers on every truck, and we have pre-fire plans. And so when we arrive on scene, we can pull up the maps, we can do a satellite view, we can look at the school, we know where all the egress points are, we know where all the access points are, but we also have our crews walk through the schools. We actually have a team who go through and identify hazards, and they're constantly uploading these in the computer. And it's real time. As they're uploading, it's happening. And so even if we're at the school and we're going to the nurse's office because somebody's having an asthma attack, that captain, if he or she sees something, they can go right back to the truck and upload it. So that 3 weeks from now, another truck comes and they know where that hazard is. And so it's an ongoing process of pre-fire planning, but it makes it a very smart response, and we can get through our objectives quicker.
Great. Chief Duggan, I know you talked about it earlier, but I want to talk a little bit more about those signs that say police workstation. Do all of our schools have that? And again, how do they earn that sign?
So that was made possible through the partnership with the school district. So presently in our Chandler schools and our Chandler School District schools and Kyrene, we have 2 middle schools in the Kyrene district. They have all either they are posted by now or they're in the process of being posted. My understanding is by this point, they should all be posted in the schools. So through that partnership, we identified an area at each of those campuses where the officer can go and again, take their laptop and just maybe get out of the heat and do some paperwork, but to provide a presence on campus and a presence that may be random. And no one can really predict when that officer will be there, but they know that that is definitely a location that they may be at.
Like you say, it's elevating the presence of our police department, whether they're in that parking lot doing paperwork or computer work or whatever they're doing.
And we want to bring them to that campus.
Yeah. The fact that they're there and folks are going to talk about, hey, we had Chandler police on campus today, or even folks that, might be scoping out a school and can see that there's a presence there. Yeah. Good. So let's talk about the partnership with the community. We need the entire community to be active in what we're trying to accomplish, which is a safer school. So parents, students, school staff, and the city. But it comes down to identifying potential issues. What kind of expectation do you have as the police chief for our community in terms of identifying potential threats?
Well, Mayor, the cornerstone really of our system of policing here in Chandler certainly is prevention. So it's so critically important that when parents and teachers or family members or coaches or friends or whomever, if they sense something, they recognize some type of behavior that may concern them, it's so important that they push that up, that they reach out to someone and report that. So essentially it's to see something, say something. because especially today, our world is it's a different place for our kids growing up. When we were growing up, we had the threats of whether it's alcohol or gangs or drugs or bullying. The kids today have all that and much more. So from social media, web-based threats, from human trafficking to just the prevalence of suicide. It's a very complicated world right now.
True.
So for parents and teachers and coaches to be informed, that's the critical part. So how are they assessing what their kids may be going through? Are they able to read those signs? Do they have information to respond? And then do they know where to get help and resources? And I'll say that we have a fabulous program here in Chandler. In fact, an award-winning program called the Guardian Academy. And we put this on twice a year. It's 4 weeks each, once a week for 3 hours a night. But we bring in the people that are responsible for kids. So again, parents, teachers, coaches. And we train them and expose them to the current threat stream. What are our kids facing? When the kids leave the house, what do they see?
Right.
What are they exposed to? And again, whether it's the cyberbullying or social media, mental health issues, just how to be resilient. And we go through a wide variety of topics to discuss. So it equips the parents and teachers and whoever with information so they can make a more informed assessment. And then equally important, they know where to go. They know who to call, and we provide that information as well.
That's your Guardian program.
That's the Guardian Academy, yes. So in that program, similar to the CERT, this program is being scaled and copied at a national level. So we're very proud of that. But that was an organic program that one of our crime prevention officers started, and it's been a huge success. And we've trained hundreds and hundreds of members of our community already.
Yeah. What I'm hearing as we talk about this is you guys have put in your meeting, you're proactive. The school districts in our community are proactive. You're doing everything you can do to be prepared in case of any kind of emergency. And I think that's a start. That's where we need to be heading.
Sure. And we spend a lot of time, both departments, a lot of time, energy, and effort in training on how to respond. And we do that very well. But clearly, the emphasis is better put also on the front end to prevent things from happening. So we have our response elements, but equally important is putting the effort on the front end to ideally prevent a tragedy from occurring. So many of these programs are meant to prevent bad things from happening.
You know, and Chandler's a city of 250, 260,000 people, and we have a lot of schools between our high schools and junior highs and elementary. This is no small task, what you're undertaking, because there are so many facilities in our city. It's really, it's a big task.
It is, but with the buy-in of the school districts, which we
Yes.
have, makes it all possible. Some things may not happen overnight, but things just in the past few months have already come to fruition, and there are many other initiatives that are in play right now. But it's that relationship with our schools that make it successful.
We got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity maybe to deliver a message to the public or something you think they might want to know, or just to add to this conversation. I'll start with Chief Dwiggins.
Sure. So I guess if I could give a message, it would not be on behalf of the fire chief, but father. So my youngest son's a first grader at Carlson Elementary, and so when I go to these meetings, I look at it from two perspectives, as a fire chief, but as a dad, and I can tell you that there's a commitment from the school district, there's a commitment from the city, starting at the top.
Right.
There's a commitment from the police department and the fire department to keep our schools safe. And I can tell you, I go to work every day and feel very comfortable with my son in school. And I know that that the schools they're doing everything they can, and that if something did happen, we're ready for it.
Good. That's good to
departments.
hear. Yeah, great. Chief?
Mayor, I'll just end it with, obviously this is a very complicated issue. And if it was simple, it had been fixed already. And obviously that's not happening. So in addition to the training and our ability to respond, the prevention is the key, and for people to be engaged. So obviously the police department, fire department, we play an integral role, a very important role, obviously, but it's not our role alone.
Right.
So this is a community effort. It's a community problem. So we're there as a partner, very engaged partner, but we need everyone's help. Yeah. And it's just that it could be that one person noticing something may not be right with their child or their neighbor or someone on their team, and just engaging. And instead of stepping back and having someone else do it, that's not the times that we live in. So it's important to step up and everyone share that responsibility.
Yeah, I think you guys are on the right track here. You've got a good department. You guys are addressing it internally, but also we're trying to empower our citizens to be a little bit more involved with these kind of issues, and to, when you see something that doesn't look right, let us know. We need to know.
We are 100% reliant on our citizens. We can't do this by ourselves. We recognize that. So we need everyone needs to step up, and we encourage everyone, and we look forward to working with the community.
Good. Well, thanks for being with us today, both chiefs, Chief Dwiggins, Chief Duggan. I appreciate it, and citizens appreciate what you're doing in all aspects of your job, but in particular with school safety that we're talking about today. So thank both of you.
Thanks, Mayor.
I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny. You've been watching Chandler Inside and Out today. Hope you enjoyed the program. Until we see you again, take care and be safe.